Hi, my name is Ikomatussuniah, and I would like to present a paper about transformation of ulama's role in Nusantara, a case study of halal and Thayyiban food law in Indonesia. The history of halal and Thayyiban food in Indonesian society is undone research study. This research is to study the transformation of scholars' roles or ulama roles based on the history of halal and Thayyiban food law in Indonesia's society. The method used was qualitative data analysis using archival research for the history of halal and Thayyiban food and in-depth interviews conducted with figures of several religious-based organizations in Banten, Indonesia to strengthen the results. The respondents were leaders from Muslim and non-Muslim organizations in Banten province. In addition, the recorded conversation transcribed was used to support the findings. The results found that the ulama roles in the halal standard are different in three levels of eras. In the pre-colonial period, scholars acted as exemplars of Islam by applying Islamic values in people's daily lives, including the concept of halal and Thayyiban food, based on the Islamic boarding school educational system. Scholars become missionaries in the colonial era who are believed to be enforcers of Islamic law. The colonizers did not interfere in the rules of religion, especially on halal and Thayyiban food law. During this period, Islamic law became a custom that developed in the community. Next, the post-colonial era, when the role of scholars on halal and Thayyiban food standards is done by issuing halal certificate based on halal fatwas. The government intervened to legalize it under public law, namely the law of halal and product assurance. The results contributed to fill the gap of knowledge about the history and development of ulama roles on halal and Thayyiban food law in Indonesia. This question is what the transformation appears of the ulama's roles regarding halal and Thayyiban food law on three levels of period, namely pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial. The research design, the method used was abductive with qualitative data analysis using secondary data and in-depth interviews. The secondary data were from various sources such as journals, books, and internet sources. Furthermore, Blakey described abductive research strategy starts from the social actor's point to explain the social world. In-depth interviews were done with respondents from leaders of various beliefs in Banten, which is the largest spot of halal valley industry in Indonesia, to strengthen the findings in this research. The respondents were faith-based leaders from Buddhist, Nahdlatul Ulama, Muhammadiyah, and Indonesia Ulama Council in Banten province. The interview processes were recorded, then transcribed in a verbatim way. Furthermore, the coding process was done and the findings were assessed to answer the objectives. Overall, the result may give new insight into the history of roles of ulama on halal and Thayyiban food in Nusantara that can contribute knowledge in halal and Thayyiban food law timeline. The role of scholar or ulama in spreading Islam is highly respected by the community. In Nusantara, their role in each era is very dominant because they are people who are believed to understand religion, including about halal and Thayyiban food law. The history of halal and Thayyiban food law in Indonesia's society divides into three levels of times: pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial. The scholar's role in pre-colonial carried out the spread of Islamic teachings through the education system in the community. We called it pesantren. They were teaching the contents of the Quran and Hadith, including the principle of halal and Thayyiban food itself. The beginning of halal and Thayyiban food law history is from the entry of Islam brought by the merchants, and then the spread was carried out by the scholars. Furthermore, pesantren became a tool of scientific transfer related to Islamic teachings, and people believe in the teaching system built by pesantren. During colonial, scholars played a full role in determining that food was halal or haram. The study of food law, in particular, is more to private law as religious law, when belief norms implemented without the intervention of colonial rulers. The invaders who came already understood that Islamic law became a culture and customary law in Indonesia. Subsequently, related to halal and Taliban food law application could not be disturbed. The colonial government did not interfere in the regulation of halal and Taliban food law. The role of scholars in post-colonial is issuing a halal fatwa on products. On its way, Majelis Ulama Indonesia established halal certificates for halal verified products to provide certainty for Muslim consumers. When the trade has expanded, and not only in Archipelago or Nusantara, halal and Taliban food commodity has an extensive market share and promises to bring enormous profits. Eventually, the government feels the need to intervene in maintaining and protecting Muslims' rights. Public law on food established by the government as a real action to assure Muslims get their rights. In Indonesia, halal food regulates in Act of Food Law and Halal Product Assurance, institutionalization of halal standard established under public law authority. The authority spread on various departments such as Halal Product Assurance Organizing Agency, or we call it BPJPH, Badan Penyelenggara Jaminan Pangan Halal, the National Agency for Food and Drug Control, Badan Pengawas Obat dan Makanan, or we call it BPOM, Assessment Institutional of Food, Drugs and Cosmetic Majelis Ulama Indonesia, LPPOM MUI, or we call it Lembaga Pengkajian Pangan, Obat-obatan dan Kosmetik Majelis Ulama Indonesia. However, the role of ulama remains as the main decider on halal standards by establishing halal fatwa. Furthermore, it is strengthened by the government halal agencies in establishing legalized halal certificates issued. All in all, theorizing about the transformation of ulama's role are as follows. The system is the person. In the period of pre-colonial and colonial, ulama take their part to spread Islamic teachings. The fiqh values of halal and Taliban food evolved into daily life activities of people. Subsequently, the norms transformed into customary law, and the supervisor of its implementation was ulama. The system is in the institutions. In the post-colonial, ulama is part of the institution of halal and Taliban food law under public law. Nowadays, ulama's role have been institutionalized by the system without reducing their authority. Eventually, the institution becomes the system of halal and Taliban food law itself. Okay, thank you very much.